So the next thing I want to talk about was the radio buttons. So I'm going to go and just read these slides. So a group of radio buttons represent a set of mutually exclusive options. Only one button can be selected at any given time. When a radio button from a group is selected, the button that is currently on in the group is automatically toggled off. So I don't know if you guys know how radio buttons work, but essentially what they're telling you is carpentry is selected. And then if I were to press comedy, then carpentry automatically gets deselected. So only one of these three can be selected at a time. So let's look at the example they did. So they have a quote options. They created a quote options pane. They set it all up, and they set it all up the way we did before. They have something called a toggle group. So to establish a set of mutually exclusive options, the radio buttons that work together as a group are added to a toggle group. The set toggle group method is used to specify which toggle group a button belongs to. The isSelected method of a radio button returns true if the button is currently on and false if it's not. And then here is their quote options. So they have the quote, and then they have the string that is going to be associated with each one of these quotes. And then they have their radio buttons for the different the different types that you can select of quotes: a philosophy quote, carpentry quote, or a comedy quote. Okay, and the different quotes that they're using, they have their philosophy, their carpentry, and their comedy. And then they create a text box called quote, and they default the quote to be philosophy, and they set the font to be, they fit the font family and the font size to 24. They're using a stack pane, and they set the preferred size. Then they create a toggle group. Okay, there's a toggle group right here that they create. Then they create a philosophy button, which is a radio button, and they put philosophy in there so it has a label, and they default it to being selected to true, right? They set selected, put it to true, and then they add it to, they set, or actually what they do is they call set toggle group, and they add it to the toggle group, right? They pass in toggle group. And then it looks like they have the process radio button action as the method that gets triggered on the event. And then they have the carpentry set, and then they have the comedy one set, and they're using a V-box, which is a vertically stacked box. So they're using the V-box for these toggles, so they're stacked like this, right? Oops, I didn't mean to move that. But that's the V-box right there working. And they do the same thing for the comedy, right? They're just basically adding it to the toggle group. They're setting the label, setting the toggle group, and then setting what method is triggered when the button's called. Here's the V options, and they pass in those three radio buttons. And then they're saying that the options is going to be centered left, and they set the spacing, and they set the spacing of this pane. I didn't even see what it was inheriting from. The quote options is inheriting from the H box. So they're using an H box, a horizontal box, to align things horizontally. And then they're using a V box for just the quotes. And they set the spacing, and then they add the options in the quote, and then the radio button. So this is another pretty simple, I believe it's simple. Let me see if I missed anything. All right, yeah, I think it's gonna be simple. I'll just do it really quick. Should I do what they did? Please take my wife, measure twice, cut once. Philosophy was, I think, therefore I am. Okay, this is a pretty simple example. Like, we should already be getting kind of comfortable coming up with a particular pattern to do all of this. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this example. I'm going to create a project called radio button example. So let's go ahead and do this. So the last thing that we did was this style options one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to file and then go to new project. and then hit. I'm almost tempted to just switch over to 8. I'm just gonna switch over to 8 so I don't have to mess around with all the nonsense of setting the library and then doing the VM options. I'm just gonna do that really quick, for now. And I'll come over here and say GUI, and then we'll just do radio button, and then hit finish. I'll say this window. Okay, so I'm gonna just follow the same pattern that we've been doing. We should already be kind of comfortable. We're gonna make a Java class, and we call it launcher. And then the launcher is going to extend the application class, JavaFX application class. It's gonna have the main method, public static void main, and then it's gonna launch. Okay, and then over here, we're gonna have to implement the start method. Hit OK, and then from here, what I'm gonna do is, I forgot what they named their freaking pane. Dang it! I guess it doesn't matter. We can come up with our own. So we'll just call this one. I think it was like quote pane. God dang it. Okay, it was called quote pane, and we'll say pane is equal to new quote pane. All right, we're gonna make that class, and we simply just going to create a scene, and then say scene is equal to new scene, pass in our pane and our size. I've been just choosing 500, 500. Haven't really been paying attention to what the book says. Okay, and then we need a color. So we'll just use color, and we'll use a custom color, and we'll just give it like 50% red, 50% green, 2% blue. Okay, and it's upset at me, so I had to put the 0 in front of it, I believe. Stop being upset at me. Oh, it might be upset because of the pane. I am using the correct color. Okay, so my stage. Okay. Oh, it's named primary stage. Now that I'm using 1.8, it named it primary stage. So I'm going to say set title, and I'm going to say quotes, and then primary stage dot set scene, and I'm going to say scene, and then primary stage dot set or actually show. All right, perfect. So the only thing we need to do is work on this pane. Okay, we have an idea of how we want it to be. So I'm going to go to create class, hit OK. Okay, so this is all from what I remember. It extends a horizontal box pane. If you remember, that just aligns things horizontally. And then some of the instance data it had was it had strings for the different types of quotes. So one was philosophy, so I'm just going to say P quote. And then one was carpentry, dang it, and that's C quote, and then comedy. I'm just going to be super generic about this. I'll say like quote 1, quote 2, because I only want to demonstrate the radio buttons, and then quote 3. Okay, you have 3 quotes, and then you have 3 radio buttons, and we'll say like radio button 1. I guess we'll be really generic about it. Radio button 2. Oh, dang it! Said get radio button. Radio button 1, radio button 2, radio button 3. Okay, perfect. And then the last thing was the quote, and that was a label, I believe, and we'll just call it quote. Okay. And I need to import this class. Okay, there you go. I don't like that this is quote and this is quote 1, 2, and 3. I messed this one up. Should be quote 3. Okay. So we'll just call this one selected quote. How about we just do quote label? So we know it's a label. Okay, perfect. Now what we're going to do is come over here and make our constructor. I'm just going to go to generate and then just hit constructor and just hit OK. Okay. I don't know what's taking in the quote. All right. I must have selected quote by accident. Okay, there's my constructor. So the first thing I want to do is set quote 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to say quote 1 is, this is quote 1. I know I'm being really generic about this. You can update this if you want, but I'm going to just make this as easy as possible for myself. Okay, so there's my 3 quote strings. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to make that label. And the first, and it's just going to be, quote 1 is going to be selected by default. Okay, and then quote label, we're going to set the font, and we can make an object reference variable for font and all that, but I believe even the book got tired of doing that. And they set the style Helvetica. Did I spell that right? I don't know. Dang it. 24. Okay. I'm assuming I spelled it right. I'm just going to move on. If it doesn't work, then I'll fix it later. Okay, so I set my quote and okay, I think that's all they did to it. Okay, the next thing I need to do is create what they called a toggle group for the radio buttons. So toggle group, and they said group, and I think it was just new toggle group. Okay, all right, and then really then from here it's pretty just everything's the same, right? So radio button 1 was new radio button, and then they gave it a label, and I'll just say quote 1, and then radio button dot set selected true. That was because the first one, the one was actually selected by default, and I don't remember if they did anything else. Oh yeah, I do remember. And the next thing we got to do is set group, set toggle group, and then pass in the group that we created, toggle group we created above. I'm gonna go ahead and just copy this, and oh, we need the action too. Dang it. Okay, so the next thing is set action, set on action, and this, and I'll say do radio button action. Okay, so I'll make that method in a bit. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, come over here, paste it for radio button 2, paste it for radio button 3. Okay, I'll have to go dress all this up. I don't need to set radio button 2 and 3 to selected, and just come over here, change this to a 2, change this to a 2, change this to a 2, and then come inside the quote. Dang it, I meant to put a 3 there. Okay, perfect. Let me go and fix this. Okay, and then they made a V-box, a vertical box. Okay, and it said new V-box, and this is where they passed in all these radio buttons to this pane. So radio button 1, radio button 2, radio button 3, and they set some spacing and alignment and all that other stuff. I forgot what they did exactly, but let's just ignore it for now. You guys can fix it later if you want. Okay, so now what they did is they said this dot add, no, what was this, set alignment center? I can't remember. Dang, I wish I remembered. Set alignment, and then position dot center. Okay, Okay, that was one thing they did, I think. I don't know, I'm not remembering anything anymore. So then the next thing they did is added all these components. So I believe it's just get children, right? Get children, no. Yeah, get children at all. And then they added in the vertical box and then the quote label. Okay, I'm gonna assume that's all I have to do. If it doesn't work, we'll come back and fix it up. Okay, I'm gonna just hover over this method right here, and I'm going to create this method. Okay, created, and I forgot what they did inside of here, but since I have a brain, I can just think about what exactly is going on right here. So this event gets triggered every time a radio button is clicked. So what we can do is just listen to that event, right? So pretty much just do this. We can say like if the event.getSource is equal to the radio button 1, then we do something that radio button 1 does. Else if the source is equal to radio button 2, we'll do stuff for radio button 2. Else the last thing is just the default stuff for radio button 3. And really the only thing we need to do is just change the quote, right? So it's just basically taking the quote label and just saying set text, and then here would be quote 1. And I'm just going to copy this. I'm really lazy and don't like repeating stuff. Copy it there, copy it here. So here I'm going to do quote 1, quote 2. I missed my semicolon there. And then here, quote 3. All right, pretty straightforward, I believe. Let's go ahead and run this. See, I'm kind of curious if this actually works. I felt like I was rushing through that. Oh, I missed my semicolon right here. Okay, so go back to the launcher class, and it looks like it's happy. So I'm gonna click this button to run. Oops, click this button to run. Run. I'm using 1.8 now, so I don't have to mess around with the VM options. And I totally messed something up because this should be like over here. So maybe, oh, it should be centered into the right. Okay, but anyways, you can see as I toggle these radio buttons, the quote changes. So I knew I had to add something to the VBox. Okay, so VBox, I'm going to do set alignment, position, center right, something like that. Yeah, center right. Okay, center right. Okay, let's run that. Oh, and then we had to set some spacing as well. And actually, we had to set spacing on all of them. So set spacing, set, I thought it was set spacing. Oh, I'm doing the VBox class. I need to do my object. Set spacing. We'll just set it to 10 here. And then for this over here, we'll say set spacing. Set it 10 there. All right, that should look a little nicer. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, well, at least it's in the middle now. There's like some spacing. But there you go. It's exactly the same thing they did, except they had quotes and they named it philosophy, carpentry, and comedy, and it looked a little nicer. Okay, so there's, like I said, there's plenty of slides inside of this GUI PowerPoint that I made. I basically just extracted slides from all the different chapters. There's 230 something slides, but I've already went through a few of them, and look, I already went through 100 slides. That's crazy. I mean, of course, I skipped over a bunch of stuff that I felt like you don't actually need to know. But there's actually a lot of good information. I encourage all the students to kind of just go through these slides in the book and just kind of do some of the examples they have in here. A lot of the examples are pretty neat. It's going to kind of, like you can do things like, rotate the different positions within the scene. Let's see, they have that. What else do they have? They talk about GUI designs. Oh, mouse events. Okay, you can actually listen to like mouse events, like mouse press, mouse release, mouse click. Like if you entered in a certain part of your GUI, you can like set on mouse press events, and I'll show you guys how to do that in the next example I do. It's actually pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just whenever you detect, like whenever you have a component, you can just set a mouse event. So here they have the scene and then set mouse press, and they're calling like process mouse pressed mouse drag, right? So on your scene, you just hit dot and then set on mouse press, on mouse drag, so you can kind of listen to what the mouse is doing. And then like when you go to the event, you can actually determine like what on the mouse was clicked. And I'll show you how to do that on the next example that I do. I'm just going to kind of just thumb through everything, setting lines, arrays of colors, choice boxes. Oh, choice boxes seem really cool. Okay, I'm not going to demonstrate them just yet. But essentially it looks like you can have like a list of options and then this is really a drop down box, but they call it choice box, and then you select the choice that you want. This is actually pretty cool. Choice box. So it looks like for a choice box, you need like an array of items that you want to choose from. And then to actually make it, let's see, how do they do that? Oh, they call choice box and they specify the type of data that it's going to hold. So here they said string. So this choice box is holding strings. So at some point you got to pass it an array of strings. So let's go back over here. So here's choice, and let's see where they set this. Okay, they instantiate it, they add everything from names, and they default by selecting the first one, and then they call set on action process choice. I'm curious to see what process choice does. Process choice, oh, it looks like it stops like some music that's playing. Like they're actually playing music in the background for this app, which is pretty interesting. You guys should probably look through that. But I think that's kind of above and beyond like what I want you guys to know. But if you want to get more into this GUI stuff, I suggest that you look at it. And they basically get the index of the currently selected, and then they use that index to go into the array of tunes that they have set up. That's so I'm going to use a choice box too. Somewhere I'm going to use it, and somewhere I'm going to use the mouse events on the next GUI example that I do. I'm interested in using the choice box. Inheritance with Java. Okay, so they're talking about inheritance with JavaFX. You guys can look through that. There's also talking about the date picker, which is kind of cool. Dialog boxes, which is also kind of cool. You can look through all that stuff. Okay, and listeners, sliders. Okay, there's a lot of good stuff here, but I feel like I kind of talked about the basic stuff that I want you to know for this class. But there's a lot of good information. Like if you want to just get really good at using JavaFX, I recommend going through these slides and getting comfortable with using, JavaFX. But I kind of feel like buttons, text boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, like those are like common components in that drop-down box that we used, or they showed the choice box. That one's actually pretty cool. I think that's something that you would probably use in GUIs. And they have these like spinners, so you can kind of, instead of dropping down to a certain value, you can like press up or down on a certain value. Yeah, there's a lot of good information in these slides. I recommend everybody just going through them all and doing the examples. They all seem to be working examples, so I recommend going through that.